Hello.
Hi, Gokko, how are you?
How are you doing?
Good, and you?
Hi, Doctor.
Hello. How are you?
Hi.
Very good. Thank you very much. I see Alexander is also joining. Thanks for the additional support so that
Yes.
we can have Alexander also joining here.
Definitely.
And yes, hopefully Matthew will also be joining us soon. Okay. So how do we do it now?
So, as we have agreed, I will start with the introduction of the program and of you and the experts, and then I will give you the authorization to share your screen.
Okay. So this is how we do.
Yes.
Can we try it for just for a test run right now, so that we can, for example, that I can share my screen and that Alexander can shoot a poll.
The poll, not yet.
Not yet?
No, I'm sorry. I'm doing. I made Alexander the panelist, but I can make
No,
you.
I think I can already share the poll. If you want, I can try right now.
Okay.
Yes.
Hold on. There.
Perfect. You launched
You see
it?
them? Yeah.
Yes. And then I
Let's
submitted
give
an
it a
answer.
test. To submit. I submitted one as well.
Okay, so I'm closing the poll right now.
Perfect.
And I will show you the poll results right now, and I think that they are as they should be.
Yes,
I can see them.
Perfect.
Sure. It is excellent. And we are not seeing. We were testing this just beforehand, and we would also see in our test version, how many votes we submitted in this view. But it seems to be that you have this pro view, so in this view, it's also results. Excellent. So this works. Very good. Let me
Yes.
give it a try with the presentation. So if you
Irene, can you make a Goico presenter?
Yes.
okay, so now share this presentation. Good. So am I starting from this slide, or you are actually covering this slide and this slide and this slide, right?
Exactly.
And then I'm starting from agenda.
Exactly.
Okay, good. So I can see all of these. And I don't know if you also have this floating screen as the only option available here to view the active screens, or is it only me? But it seems that when I'm assuming the speaker position and sharing the presentation at the same time, it's only option is to have floating windows which are overlapping with the presentation.
We don't see the window. We don't see those windows. Only you can see them. We can only see the presentation.
Okay, so good. So
What we are able to hear though is that your voice is a little bit low. So if you manage to put your microphone a little bit closer, that would help a lot.
how does it sound now? Is it
Perfect. Much, much, much better.
excellent? So let's do it like this. Okay, so let me see how the slides are working, if they are willing to change or not. So I need to click this. So I can change it. And for example, here, if I said, okay, now let's see the polls, if you have warmed up your fingers and so on and so on, and then Alexander should be able to start a poll. Alexander, now, please.
Okay, do you see that? No?
I still don't see the poll.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Just a second. Poll number 1, right? Okay.
Yes, yes.
So, open poll. There it is.
Okay. Be ready, please, with this poll so that we don't have a delay. Okay, and now we can vote with the poll. Okay, it's all good. Then after showing, let's show the results.
Okay, hold on a second. It's just, aha, he is now offering some time to close the poll. Okay, for 9 more 6 seconds. Now this is the new option. I haven't seen this before, so okay, now it's closed.
Close
And
it.
then I can share the results.
Please. Excellent. So after we comment a little bit on this one, then we'll be moving on with the next slide and with the subsequent animations. Very good. Excellent. So that seems good from my side.
Irene, can you make me presenter so I can, as the attendees are already joining and they are able to hear us, I will.
Alexander, you can also mute yourself now. So we can...
Hi, hello, it's Mathieu.
Hi, Matthew. Good to see
Just,
you.
hello, how are you?
Very good. Thank you very much. How about
Okay.
yourself?
Yeah, I'm fine. So that's okay? The connection is okay?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay,
And I
great.
can also see you now. Very good.
Hi, hello, Adriana. I don't know if you hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, Matthew. Nice to see you again.
Hi. You're okay?
Yes, just arranging some last.
Details, okay.
Yes.
Very good. So I unmute and stop my video, and you let me know when you want me to
Mhm.
speak.
Great.
Yes? Okay. Perfect. So hi, everyone. I'm glad to have you all here. It's our last session of the day for the annual conference 2020, working together in a new normal. This is a delinquency management and collection techniques webinar. My name is Adriana Olmedo, and I'm the network and training officer for EMN. As you are used to, let me just introduce you to the organization and the program that finances our webinars with the support of the European Union program and the EaSI Technical Assistance Program. I kindly remind all participants that the session is being recorded, and along with the presentations and the other materials of the session will be shared in our webpage at the EMN webpage. So let me just briefly introduce you to our EaSI Technical Assistance Program. That is a program that is facilitating the production of this webinar, as I mentioned. This program is aimed at promoting social inclusion, combating poverty, and improving working conditions through all Europe. It has three axes. One is for employment and social policies. The other one refers to job mobility in the European Union. And lastly, the axis that finances us and that is interesting for us at this moment is the microfinance and social entrepreneurship axis that is providing the support, as I mentioned. Here we can briefly see that the EaSI funding program has three strands. The one in blue towards the left is the one that this webinar is being hosted under. All of the others on the right are organized and are managed by the European Investment Fund, and they are financial instruments. One is a capped guarantee. The second one, as you can see, the EaSI capacity building, refers to equity or quasi-equity for the financial institutions. And the last one that was launched just recently, last year, it refers to senior and subordinated loans to eligible financial institutions. This is a technical assistance service provider are two. We work in a consortium with Frankfurt School of Finance and Management as a consortium leader, and a Microfinance Center and EMN as a partners, and to deliver all technical assistance related workshops, webinars, and peer-to-peers. And the assessment, evaluation, and ratings are done by Microfinance Rating, MFR, Microfinance Rating, that provides institutional assessments, ratings, and evaluations for the institution. I won't go over too much, but I will tell you that this program lasts until next year. And if you want more information about it, you can access this webpage of the EaSI program, and you can learn more about it on this. So let me just briefly now introduce you to our speakers, our two speakers that are joining us here today for this webinar. It's Mr. Gojko Vucinic. He has a background in finance and management and an MBA in the same topic. He is also a certified security broker. He has a very, very vast experience, over 20 years in SME banking, and he has also held executive management positions, chairing credit committees, business, retail development, and other committees. He has also an extensive experience in micro, SMEs, and agro-banking in Europe, Africa, Latin America, and Middle East, with a track record of over 40 countries and 40 different institutions. He also does training on financial and development institution staff towards the enhancement of their professional skills. And he has worked as a resident lecturer at various banking academies, delivering technical and personal effectiveness courses totaling over 3,000 attendees. And in addition, he also provides capacity building to the sector and consultancy services to SMEs directly, as he is a consultant also for the EBRD program and a certified senior industry expert with the EBRD too. And together, to have a little experience from the ground, We have our expert, Matthew Barrier, which you might know. We have worked with him before. Matthew is a dedicated professional with over 20 years of experience in the microfinance sector. He started at a D as a loan officer, but now occupies the role of Deputy Chief Operation Officer, where he supervises and develops a D operation across multiple regions in the metropolitan France and in French overseas territories too. He is also a D's focal person on quality and customer satisfaction, measurements and initiatives, and spearheads a D's organization process. In addition, Matthew also regularly intervenes in D's international projects in topics related to risk, credit, and expansion strategies. His areas of expertise are network expansion, risk management, quality satisfaction measurements, and the digitalization process of AD. With this, I'm just going to show you quickly how you can interact with them. You can use either the little icon of the hand that is to raise your hand and to let presenters know that you would like to be given the floor. You can also use the chat to talk with a person in particular or to communicate and ask your questions to the speakers, and also use the Q&A to ask questions in writing. With no more further ado, I will give the floor to our expert Goiko. I will give you the power, Goiko, if you can confirm to me that.
Hello, Adriana. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for organizing this event. And I still do not have the possibility to share content, so I'm still awaiting for this option to be allowed. Okay, now it's here. I can now share the contents, and here we go. Just let me know if you can see. Also, is it now available on your screen?
Yes.
As well? Okay, so this will be as a test screen so that the participants can also see. Thank you again for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation to share some experience and some results also in terms of delinquency management on this important topic. And thanks also to Matthew for accepting the invitation to join me on this day to share some experiences also from these practices. It will be a joint discussion, which will follow the agenda, as you can see right here. So we'll be starting off with a little bit of an introduction, a little bit of an overview. What are we actually talking about in this specific case, and what is it about when we talk about delinquency? How big of an issue is it? Why are we picking up this topic at this point? So a little bit of an overview in terms of the results. We did some surveys, and we're going to do a few more today. So hopefully you'll warm up your fingers for voting in the surveys that we will share with you. So in terms of overview, in addition to the surveys, we'll also briefly check what are the relief measures being currently provided. There's a vast horizon of relief measures, so we'll pick up on a few and also assess how effective they were. And then moving on into the core topic of the lecture today, or the webinar today, of our discussion, is the NPL management and delinquency management, basically just to identify the terms that we will be talking about. Maybe you are aware that this is the second of two lectures on the same topic, on NPL topic. The previous one was delivered on the 22nd of September, and it focused on really the NPL management and a lot of these regulatory items. So, and what are the strategies to manage the NPLs? On the other hand, what we will be doing today is we'll be talking a little bit more about the delinquency, so the other part of this two series lecture. The idea is then to identify basically, so what are the terms that we'll be using, what we'll be talking about, so to identify them, to really see what are the specific indicators that we will be using, and then we want to quantify them. So we'll do a little bit of also sharing of some quantitative information, also based on the previous surveys that we made, and we'll also ask you to contribute to this cause again, also to collect additional survey results so that we can model it further. So as it usually happens in these cases, after identifying it, after measuring it, we want also to see how we can manage it, right? So the purpose of this is to share some experiences or some good practices also on how to manage delinquency, especially in this peculiar moment, in this new normal, and this COVID-induced strange realities. So what are the possible strategies and options? Let's see, maybe we can discuss a few more in addition to these that we will present as models, as and some of the choices that we can make, but also we'll have a look at a few cases from real practice. One is a case study example from the field, from a MFI, which I will not disclose the name for this point of time, but we will try to guess the name and we'll reveal it at the end, a very, very nice example. And then we'll have another very lively example from Adi and from Matthew, who will be presenting the Adi experience and what they have been doing when it comes to delinquency management. So feel free to ask questions in the chat box, as Andriana has mentioned, or to raise hand, and after certain block, we'll address them and try to answer them at the same time. Okay, so moving forward, starting first in defining the terms, maybe for most of the participants who are from the financial services providers, from microfinance institutions and banks, these are all very, very familiar. However, I understand that we also have some participants who are not so keen and not doing this on a daily basis. So just to set straight the terms that we'll be using, and also to make an indicator of what we covered so far in the previous webinar on the 22nd by David and Claudio. Basically, we covered the NPL, so the portion of non-performing loans. That was the main topic of that previous webinar, so the one that you can see on the very bottom. So definitions of default, legislation, and so on and so on. What are the techniques of resolving this NPL situation when it already happened? While in this webinar, we'll be mostly focusing on the upper part of this table, so the portfolio at risk early indicators, meaning the ones that are indicating what is happening to the loan portfolio or portfolio at risk, if you want to use this term, at the very, very early stages of delinquency, right? So we'll be covering and discussing about these indicators, their meaning and their difference for different players in the market. So the difference for the banks and the MFIs and how they are actually using these indicators to manage their portfolio going forward, right? So this is what the terms that we will use. And now I will kindly ask you to warm up your fingers, because we'll be starting off with a first poll to review the business sentiment, right? So to get an idea about how actually important is this topic and what would be the effect on the micro businesses results and their operations as a result of COVID pandemic. So in a minute, there will be a poll launched. And we can launch it right away. Thank you very much. So in your opinion, based on your experience so far and the interaction with the clients that you are working with, what would be the effect of this is a question that we're currently asking you to submit your vote on. What would be the effect on the businesses as a consequence of the changed market realities of the new normal? So would it be significantly reduced income, or moderately reduced income, or no income whatsoever, maybe even a positive impact in some cases? We might even see that some businesses have thrived during this situation as they have adapted very nicely and move forward to this specific, embrace the market realities. So, how are we doing with the votes? Please submit your votes by clicking on one of the options.
Okay.
And to review the results as they are coming in, we'll check the results. What is the expectation now for Q4, which everybody is awaiting now? What will happen as the relief measures are being phased out, as we are coming into this last quarter, which is the new unknown? So hopefully we can see the results. Right now, okay, the majority of our respondents, over 50%, thinks that it will be a significant reduction of income, so that we will have over 30% decrease of the income, clients, which will then be let's say a framework or some kind of an outline in which we need to think and operate further. So this is to see what is the expectation right now in order to compare it. Thank you very much for submitting your votes. In order to compare the current results, we have also prepared a statistic from our own survey, which we completed at a couple of months ago, so in the period May, June, which said more or less similar things, quite similar things, that there would be a significant impact, but mostly in the area of this 10 to 30%. In this case of ours, we said that there is now an even, let's say, more rigid expectation. It means that there will be over 30% as the dominant way of reducing their income. So this is a comparison of how the sentiment is moving over time and how the surveys are, or the expectations of the key stakeholders are within the same area, but just a little bit adjusted. Okay, thank you very much for your votes. And just as we have compared the statistics from our previous poll, and saying that these are the results that we collected previously. And one of the key points, now not to go into all the individual details, are saying that 2/3, of the businesses had a negative impact on their business operations. So 68%, or over 2/3, basically in this specific case. This is very similar to the result we have right now, and so that the expectations within the similar range. Also, another point that I wanted to share with you is that we did another survey within the same time frame, asking, what is the situation? How prepared were you for this COVID, for the new change realities? Did you have a plan? Did you have a contingency plan? Did you have a backup solution? Or how resilient were you? This is a word that we hear very, very often. So we wanted to check what was the pre-COVID, or let's say entering into COVID, resilience level of the businesses going into COVID. And these are the results. So those are, these were the basically results coming in from those polls, saying that majority of the respondents, which were businesses, did not have a very, very clear and set out plan, but they responded or quickly. On the other hand, we had quite a few of those that did not really have a plan, and that somehow had a significant challenge maintaining their business continuity, meaning that they had a very significant impact on their business. So in order just to share or to compare these two results, saying, 90% of the businesses met crises without a real contingency plan, or they went in flying, maybe thinking more about agility than resilience. We wanted just to compare the two results and see, what is the correlation between the two. Not saying this is a direct, let's say, repetition of one leading to the other, but there is a strong correlation, saying that there was a lot of businesses that came in without a contingency plan. So 90% of them went in without a plan B or some kind of a idea how to tackle this situation, and some made it through without harsh consequences, but a lot of them had a significant and serious impact. So it's not a direct consequence, but there is a high correlation between these two, and this is also leading us to some of the proposals and conclusions that we would be having in the later part of this presentation, saying, what can we do now if this is a situation that a lot of businesses are unprepared and face the new normal, not building this resilience reserves, some redundancies, and so on. So what can we do? We're thinking along these lines also when discussing about the possible strategies. Also, the impact was visible to the policymakers and the regulators and all the important stakeholders and the other, so across the network. So a broad range of relief measures were already launched in the very, very early stages of the crisis. And we'll just present a brief overview of those as kindly provided by the EMN Advocacy Department that provided compiled a very, very long list of all the measures that were provided across the market. So we had even a little bit of a challenge of summarizing them all together at one point. But basically, these were the key ones that are say key groups that are appearing in most of the markets. So we simply put them in three groups, in three pillars, saying one were direct supports or direct payments being made either to the businesses in terms of support, lump sum money, or subsidies in terms of providing loans or grants to public companies or to some capital investments so that they can pay to the contractors who are also delivering the services for them, or some basically subsidies in terms of salaries for staff and employees and so on. So those were the direct supports or direct payments, which is a significant bulk of measures. Then we have the other one, which is the deferrals and moratoriums, saying that this one is in almost all of the markets present, saying that there were loan moratoriums, of course, and also some tax deferrals, but in some cases we also saw significant deferrals in terms of public utilities, in some cases rent, in some cases other deferrals. So this was also a large group of relief measures provided in here. And then we also had a third group, which was indirect support, which says that there were in some cases loan guarantee schemes, which were encouraging and supporting the lenders to provide liquidity loans, to provide some support to the businesses when they needed additional money to somehow overcome the gap in terms of cash inflows. And there was also this was a significant item in some cases, and in other cases we had some items in terms of providing trainings and other capacity building measures to the businesses to support their readiness and to support their resilience to endure through the crisis. Now, among all these measures, we also wanted to see, in your opinion, what was the impact or which ones were the most popular measures. So this is like now, not saying a beauty contest, but at least a poll to see which of these were, in your opinion, most popular or actually most effective for the businesses. So we'll launch a poll in a minute. There it is. So we will kindly ask you to vote or to submit your opinion in the poll, just like we did last time. So was it income support and subsidies this for employees, this direct measures? Or was it the subsidized loans? Was it this loan moratoriums and the other deferrals that we had as an option in many cases? Or was it the tax reductions or perhaps something else? We are half a minute into the poll, so we'll wait some minute more till, let's say, a minute and a half or 2 minutes until we close the poll, so that everybody has an opportunity to submit their vote. So the question again is, based on your opinion, which ones were the most effective for the businesses, right? Which of these measures or which of the measure types supported them the most during the COVID crisis? So we'll collect these results and we'll save them so that we also can provide some feedback also during the next time to see which ones yield better results and which should or could be pursued even more. We heard at the opening speeches yesterday that there is a huge package of additional measures being discussed to support the businesses across Europe, and that it's basically outlined, but still some details are being worked out, and there will be some specifics for the different markets. So let's see if we can maybe also contribute to this one. Okay, a lot of dispersion here, so we don't have a clear winner here, but we have a few actually very, very important items that are seen as the most effective. So we have the subsidies, so income subsidies, whether through direct grants or through subsidies for the salaries. There's been one little notch above the others with a little bit about 30%, and then followed closely by this subsidized loans and tax reductions, while the moratorium and these other deferrals were a little bit less popular, or you assume they were a little bit less effective than the other ones, which is an important feedback. Obviously, now after all of these are phasing out, maybe it's a different perspective to see the effectiveness of all of those, as opposed to the perspective we had at the beginning, before, at the very, very early stages when this was offered. Thank you very much for submitting your votes. This will be also delivered as part of the package for the attendees, I hope. Now, moving forward, and if there were any questions in the meantime, Adriana, you can take them now regarding this previous results before we move to the next part, which is quantifying and identifying and quantifying the indicators. Do you have any questions? I don't see them in the chat. Okay, so we'll be moving on. If there would be something, please, Adriana, give me a heads up, and I'll stop at the next.
Goiko, we don't have any questions at the moment. The only thing that some attendees are asking you if you could speak closer to your microphone.
Okay.
That's the one. But if you or any other attendees have more questions, you can write them. Goiko can also see them, and I will moderate them for you.
Thank you very much, Adriana. I'm putting my microphone closer now, and hopefully it will be more louder for the participants. Thank you for the feedback. Okay, moving now towards our core topic of the day, which is delinquency management, and basically to see what is the difference between these two, NPL management and delinquency management. We just need to see a little bit of an introduction, also as two sides of this, or two parts of this webinar. So as we said, the first one was delivered on the 22nd by Claudio and I think Italian experts. So they were talking mostly about a certain point of our portfolio at first. So that we were having a different perspective basically on this first lecture, covering mostly this part here. So the lecture focused basically in the previous one in part 90, so saying what is the default, what should we do in case of a default, and what are the possible options. Also, this was somehow this area of part 90, which is, as we remember from the introductory part, very close to sometimes also overlapping with NPLs. This is a point where the banks and also commercial banks are intervening and taking a lot of activities when it comes to managing the NPLs and the defaults. In the case of these institutions, the activities are mostly intensifying and starting around this point of part 30 and onwards, and there is not so much activities in the case of commercial banks. In the days or we actually have a different situation. We have a situation that the MFIs are focusing closely on the very, very early days or number of days when loans are in arrears, and basically they are launching a lot of activities exactly in this area here until, so from part 1, when the loan starts being in arrears, and then also all the way to the part 30, and it's considered for the banks, for example, at part 30 is kind of a beginning of delinquency. For MFIs, it's more or less already very, very close to an NPL or to a default. That's why these indicators have their relative difference in their weight, in their importance for the banks, as discussed previously in the previous lecture, and the MFIs we are discussing on this lecture. So it's of course due to different nature of the business model, different type of clients, their resilience, their stability, their volatility. We will for sure focus on this part here, so the early stages of the loans being in arrears. Okay, before going into this next chart, there is a question, I believe. So saying which countries was conducted the interview, what is the source? Yes, the source is the countries are European countries, and the source is our own survey. So it's a sample, it's not a huge research being done by institution. It's from our own research and from the series of different webinars and interactions that were done with the businesses during the period of May and June this year. So this gives a little bit of an indicator, not a definite result, but a sentiment as outlined previously. Thank you for the question. So as we said, that there are different points in these indicators. It's also important to see here how they are correlating and what is to define them very, very precisely, to identify them so that we can later on measure them, right, and quantify them. So again, starting with our chart, number of days in arrears, and saying, NPL management typically by definition starts when NPL occurs, which is typically at the start of 90 days in arrears. Of course, there are other conditions, but in most cases, this is as this. But in practice, we're actually looking at a vast area of activities, which starts even before this number of days being in arrears and continues throughout the later stages, as you had the chance to see in the previous webinar. But in this case, what we are talking about is delinquency management, and by definition, or this narrow sense, delinquency management starts at day one, right? The first day when the event occurred. So we call it a trigger event, which says the loan is in arrears, the payment is in delay, the installment has not been paid. So that's like this narrow sense, but what we are advocating for here is that there is and there should be a whole area, a whole spectrum of activities which actually starts way before the arrears actually occurred, so that there is a proactive approach in this specific case, and we'll actually discuss about this approach going forward. So there are some activities which are happening before. There are some, let's say, customized underwritings. There are some sector-specific activities, and active client advisory, and so on, communication and warning systems. We'll discuss about all of those very, very soon. Just making a point here at this stage that we are basically will be discussing not just the narrow sense, so whether it will be collection activities starting when the event occurred, but actually a few of those happening beforehand. So we call it proactive delinquency management. So when we have actually identified indicators, saying these are the ones that we will be looking at, PAR 1, PAR 30, and NPLs, and so on, and saying what we will be focusing on. So in the process, after identifying them in more detail, the next step is to quantify them, right? So we did, again, a little survey, again, with not a definitive survey or just with some institutions, but before COVID, to address the financial institution results in terms of delinquency, right? So these are pre-COVID results, bear in mind. These are pre-COVID results, and they are pre-COVID results of PAR 1 indicator. So again, it's from our own survey, so it doesn't include all the MFIs out there, but it is within Europe, and it is pre-COVID time. So we have a result, a median result, the entire group for this entire sample of PAR 1 of close to 18%. So remember, PAR 1 was the share of loans being in arrears 1 year or more. And we have clustered the ones that were surveyed into the different groups, into the different pools, based on we have identified the 3 pools here, or 3 groups, group 1, 2, and results within the groups. So the ones within group 1 are this items in the middle, so that these are the results in the this group, which are very close to the overall results. So these are the results of the pre-COVID time, right? So this is an approximation, again, based on our own research, and with a focus pre-COVID, right? So what we want to do when we are measuring this is to see what do we expect in post-COVID, right? So please get ready for our last poll, saying what is your expectation, right, in terms of COVID-adjusted PAR 1 indicator, meaning how much will the change market realities, how much will the new now or the new normal change PAR 1 indicator, how many more loans will be in arrears. So we'll be ready to launch the poll. Just please kindly note that these options are in relative terms. There is also an explanation down here saying, they will, PAR 1 will remain as it is, more or less, so not a significant increase, or it will increase, or maybe even decrease, or the other option is that it will increase but not so significantly, so by 10%, or maybe from 10 to 30, or even more significantly in relative terms. So these would be the options, and we will kindly ask you to submit your vote. Yes, time frame. The time frame is end of year 2020. Sorry for not specifying this. Thank you, Valentina, for asking the question. So the time frame is end of year, but also early stages of the next year. So we're looking at the end of month results and also end of year results in this specific case to get an approximate sentiment of what do you expect will be the change of this PAR 1 indicator when basically the measures are fading out, right? So right now, what we are all seeing is still somehow the results with a lot of the relief measures being in place, but what we are expecting is that these measures will slowly fade out, and they are actually fading out. In some countries, they're already completely faded out. So this is not a time frame the same for each country or each market. It's basically the question, what happens after the relief measures are out? So what is the expectation what will happen in terms of COVID adjusted PAR 1 indicator? Will it increase? Will it not increase? Or will it increase significantly? So I think the poll is closed, and I don't know if you can see the results right now, or it's not closed. Can you see the poll results? Okay. So the results are in. I hope you can see them on your screen. And the expectation is, therefore, by most all the participants, the overwhelming majority of participants, that they will increase by 10 to 30% in relative terms, which means that if currently the average is around 18%. So if it increases by 10%, then we are close to 20. And in terms of the results of PAR 1 after the measures have subsided. Thank you very much for submitting the results. We'll take them in also into consideration and into further results, again, as a sentiment, not a definite result, as the results in terms of PAR 1 are not published as a part of the, let's say, official statistics, but they are typically collected through surveys, like such as this one, and such as surveys that we do in other platforms, in our seminars, webinars, and also in the direct surveys with some of the counterparts. Thank you again for submitting your votes, and thank you for our moderator for sharing the slides and for sharing the results of the surveys. So good. Now we're moving into the most interesting part, hopefully, which is basically now that we have identified them for one, so which indicators, what do they mean, where are they important, and to whom, and when we have measured them, so quantified them, what was their pre-COVID level, and what was their what was the expectation of the quantitative results after the measures and phased out. The next item would be, how do we manage it, right? So this is the key question now. How do we move forward? And we'll be discussing this basically, and And this is our last part of the session of this webinar, and we'll be discussing it as a model example. So what are the possible approaches that we can have, and also what are the examples of how MFIs have actually implemented this in practice. So what was the preferred approach by our colleagues from practice? And then, as I said at the very beginning, we'll have two specific examples that we will share. One is a case study, and then for an MFI, you will guess which one is it. And then the other one, Adi and Matthew will present the Adi approach. So when discussing the ways to manage it and the strategies based on the identification and quantification, right, in terms of delinquency management, we said there are typically these two approaches, which one is this narrow sense approach, saying, we respond when the problem occurs, when there is a trigger event occurring, and then we have this corrective approach, trying to collect, trying to resolve the situation as it has occurred. So the focus in this specific case is, or this type of strategy is the focuses on the recovery, right? On activities focused on recovery. On the other hand, we have this broader sense, as you might remember on the graph that we shared previously. And we say, there is a whole range of options and activities that can happen before the event has actually occurred. So this is called the preventive approach, which is to a certain extent focused on collaboration. So rather than recovery, we focus on collaboration. So what does it really mean when we talk in practical terms? So how do we manage it in practical terms in one case and the other? When talking about this corrective and recovery approach, we are saying again, so we are reacting and we are acting when the problems arise, right? So it says when the event has already occurred, and we have a full range of options that MFIs typically practically use in these cases, which is daily calls and activities and visits to see what is going on and to try and collect if the installment is late. There is also an option of restructuring or refinancing if there is a problem with the loan that was not discovered beforehand and which is a driver of these reasons. We can use the guarantor as a source of payment if there is a guarantor to a loan or collateral. And in some cases, eventually, maybe we will do it. Maybe in some cases we will not. And we will, in those cases where this is not resolved and the recovery is not successful, we end up with NPL. And with those techniques and options that were discussed in the previous webinar, right? So is it selling the portfolio? Is it doing different possibilities and options? So this is this corrective and recovery approach. On the other hand, basically this is the approach that, of course, it's not excluding one from the other, but the activities focus can be slightly different in one and the other approach. So in this different strategy, which is preventive and collaborative, more or less we have several options saying this is that vast area which happens before the trigger event has occurred, saying that there are a full range of activities that will and can happen before the actual NPL or before the actual arrears has occurred. So there is a possible predictive analysis saying, which kind of clients are very likely to encounter some problems. Is it some sectors? Is it some regions? Is it some types of activities? Is it some different other situations based on which we can predict, or to a certain extent, which ones will be endangered, and then make some specific action plans towards them. Another activity would be awareness raising activities. You'll see this with Matthew's case. They have this actually going forward in terms of some education and in terms of supporting the individual clients on moving beyond their problems and trying to find some cases together. And also in some cases, this awareness raising is that a deployed approach of activities for the individual businesses to be aware really what is the underlying issue. Because we had some cases where them were denying the situation and that there is a problem until the ruling was very difficult to turn it around, right? So or another example is this business projections, which you will see also done in one of our cases. that we will present, so that with each individual client, there is a analysis done saying, you know, what will your future cash flow be like in the specific cases? What is our planning horizon? What is your liquidity needs to bridge this temporary gaps, if there are some temporary gaps? So this is an individual approach, more or less. So as you can see in this case, there are quite a few different options. We can divide them, or let's say group them in different levels, so that there are some market level market, what are the sectors that might be hindered, or what are the regions or otherwise segmented, and then develop this sector-specific or region-specific action plans. And we have this activities, which we call them portfolio-level activities, which might be predictive analysis in terms of my risk pools. What are they? Which of those will be more or less likely to have some problems, and then to predict and to react in those cases preventively. And as we said, there is also quite a few activities in the business level, saying that one of those that we have, or some of those that we have previously outlined. So something crazy awareness, such as doing educational items in, but also doing individual cases with clients and projecting their cash flow and assessing their needs. So that would mean that the loan officers are dealing directly with individual clients and calculating the really tailored solutions for each of them in this sense. It is an intensive activity, but we'll see what results it yielded in some of the cases that we will discuss furthermore. So just one more slide before we go to the most interesting part and the examples. This is how actually one supportive tool to implement it on the client level. So this is an approach that we use in some cases to support some of the clients that had this item or this issue on the table. So it is, a lot of practitioners out there will remember this matrix and this, let's say, quadrants from our standard ways of underwriting for microloans. So when we are approving loans, we're more or less looking at the ability and willingness of each individual case. Nowadays, it's mostly scoring that is underlying for the decision making, but even the scoring relies basically on this specific situations, or on these two axes. So what can be the specific activities, or what can we do, right? So we want, obviously, most of the cases and most of the individual loans to finish up in this top right-hand corner, right, which are able and willing to repay. So we need to think about what are the strategies and possible approaches to move, or can we move them from other segments or from other boxes into the one which is able and willing, so that the loans really get repaid. So, of course, there are many approaches to this case, and some say it's not even possible. We say yes, in practice, we have done it. And one of the examples of the collaborative approach to move it from this quadrant upper left to the upper right side by using collaborative approach is actually this identifying those who are not able but are willing. So they have the goodwill and they want to find a solution and to find the answer. But currently their sector is under problem, like was it hospitality sector or tourism sector or transport sector, one of those that were really heavily impacted. So that we do some kind of a predictive analysis for the sector, and we do some projection of liquidity needs, moving them therefore from not being able to repay, maybe in a different setting, right? So this is just one option that is available there. Another option is to move from this bottom right hand quadrant to the upper right quadrant, again using the collaborative approach. So those are able, but somehow it appears not willing, right? So they have some doubts, they have some questions also. Very often it's about questions that they have, some fears also, some not understanding what is the current situation, what will be the future. So in this case, some of the, let's say, activities that we like to use in practice in these cases are this communication, education type of activities, and also awareness raising activities. And again, we'll see quite a few of those in the practical cases that were implemented in the ones that we will show in the very next slides. Before we go to this implementation, and before I ask you to guess which MFI this is, that we will present on the next slide, before going to Adi and the examples from Matthew, I would also ask if there would be any questions at this point regarding the strategies that we discussed and deployed, and or comments to that end. Let's check again a little bit the chat.
I'm not seeing any questions at the moment, Goiko, but attendees, please feel free to write them. As your questions come, we will definitely go attend them when there's any doubt.
I'm sure there will be questions when Matthew comes and when there are specific situations being presented. Thank you, Adriana. So if there will be no further questions, we just provide an example, a case study provided by our friends, and we'll very closely try to guess which MFI this is, a very successful MFI, the measures they applied during the COVID crisis. So of course, the first one is like this default measure that was provided by the regulator, and it was a moratorium that was, in this case, in the case of the specific market, was an opt-in moratorium, meaning that the clients needed to say, yes, I do want one if they were to get it. Right? So this was the first somehow circle or this pillar of the implementation. Then the second one was the restructuring, so that this MFI and the loan officers and the management said, you know, we're going to look at each individual case and see, based on their real needs, should we or how much should we prolong it? Should we include some additional, let's say, deferral in terms of payments? Should we change the ways installments are being paid, or should we do nothing if there is no problem in this specific case? Right. So this was the second this in practice. Then there was a third pillar that moved in here, which was an additional loan. So as these were, of course, the existing clients, and this MFI has a very, very long tradition, and some clients which have more than 10 or even 15 loans used with the institution, so a very long tradition and the record of the institution. There was a, let's say, kind of a faster procedure for assessing and approving additional loans. So that would be based on the specific tailored liquidity gaps being analyzed going forward, and providing those loans as another support measure moving forward and to support this liquidity gap. So this was the one more. And then it was all coupled up by another one, which was that during the moratorium, the interest rate on the loans that were active was reduced or discounted by 50%. So we know that during this time, the interest rate is accrued, but not paid in some cases, and that the clients have this, let's say, additional expenses in terms of interest expenses when during this time. So the MFI decided, based on their careful calculations, to reduce the interest rate by 50% for the clients in this case. And one thing led to another, and led to another, and then to another. And then this is the specific solution that provided tailored solution to individual clients, with a lot of work being done beforehand, so to analyze the situation, to assess the individual clients and to assess their specific needs. And thanks to our friends from this MFI that provided us with this example, the result, of course, as you can imagine, was that the portfolio quality was maintained, but also that the clients were very, very much appreciating this specific situation, as their financial services provider stood by them during the harsh times, right, when this was very difficult, and they decreased the interest rate. So, anybody with a guess which MFI this is? No poll this time, but if anybody wants to shoot Adi, yeah, thank you, Valentina. Adi will be coming right after this one. So this is not Adi. Adi will be presented by Matthew. This is another MFI, but thanks for guessing. That was also Adriana's first guess when we were presenting this one initially. No,
I won't participate because I already know the answer, but I will give the space for other attendees' guesses.
Okay, so it's discounted interest rate. Yes, that was during a moratorium provided to the clients, and the microfinance institution, in this case, was, you might know them, it's Bospo from Bosnia and Herzegovina, who had implemented this in practice, and we hopefully have some of the attendants from Bospo here as well, and I would like to thank them again, the CEO, Mr. Safet, for sharing this example with us and providing us with a very, very relevant case in the situation of COVID crisis, how the MFI responded, and what were the results in this case. And not only that they were results in terms of reduced CAR or performance risk, but they were also results in terms of customer care and in terms of supporting the clients in the harsh times, in the times of need. Thank you very much to our friends from Bospo and for this case, and thanks for sharing. And by saying this, I will then hand over to our second implementation practice from the field, and to our friend Matthew, and thank you for also sharing the experience of Adi and the examples from practice that Adi implemented also during this times. So Matthew,
Yes, can you hear me? Goshko?
Yes.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay,
Thank
so
you,
you turn.
When you're ready, tell me to go into the next slide, please.
Okay, yeah, I let you turn the page then, and I'll start. Hello, everybody. Very happy to be here, if I can say, with you. It would have been better to see you in real, but it's going to be for next time. What Goiko asked me was to try and summarize what we did during and just after the crisis. So we tried to make it very concrete, and well, it's quite in phase with what you just described, Goiko, happily actually. And what we did first was to try to adapt what we were already doing before the COVID period with changing our procedures and processes. What was already functioning was a central team in charge of recovering late payments at ADI in France. Well, I didn't present ADI, but we're working with the main microcredit institution in France, and we have already set up that kind of centralized recovery team like 4 years ago, and they are in charge of all clients which have more than 60 days of arrear. And then we have developed year after year different repayment solutions offered to clients, monthly automatic installments, obviously, credit card payment on the phone or on their customers' online area, cash deposit in post offices, etc. All this was in place before the crisis and was very useful because, as you know, we had more incidents, and these solutions were very useful. And what we decided at the beginning of the crisis was to adjust these processes. First, centralizing loans over 7,000 euros of amount with 30 days of arrears. So it's 1 month sooner than the usual process for our bigger loans. ADI maximum loans are 12,000 euros. So above 7,000 euros is a big loan for us. And we decided as well to have our loans with default of payment on the first installment taken in charge by our centralized recovery process. So that was very important to make sure our loan officers were not spending their time just dealing with arrears. Then, in that same aim, we developed, we set up a team in the headquarters, and we trained them to be able to how to say, to take in charge the recovery of some late clients as well, in case of a quick and major power increase. And we focused some indicators on distinction between rescheduled loans and not rescheduled loans, because as Goiko presented from the beginning, we offered a moratorium. That's what we're saying just after, and we rescheduled some of our loans. So every client was proposed a solution of moratorium, but it was not a general moratorium for the overall portfolio. It was a 1 month moratorium that could be renewed up to 3 months. That's okay? Am I clear? I'm trying to be a bit, well, not to get lost into details, but that's what we did. And then on the following page, but as Goiko and Adriana said, you can ask questions whenever you want in the chat. We took measures as well to help our clients, to make sure that we did everything we could to help them going through this crisis. And that's that's the first thing we did actually in France. On the 16th of March, everything was closed, and we were all in online office, online working at home. And from the 17th of March, all our loan officers had from their main mission was to be able to contact by phone every client. So we did this diagnosis. We called everybody once a month during the whole crisis, which means more than 140,000 calls and more than 40,000 clients contacted at least once. And during this diagnosis, we talked about the business health, the client repayment capacity. We were giving advices about how to obtain state aid, and it was very important because for some of our clients it was quite difficult. Even if the French state set up quite simple processes, it still was a bit complicated for some of our clients, and we had to try and identify financial and non-financial needs. And as well, what Goiko said just before, loans. We made loans for those who wanted some. We rescheduled loans, and all these wheels turning were in place as well at ADI. So moratorium of loan installments, as I was saying, if needed, every month. And quite surprisingly, it was not all of our clients who asked for this moratorium. Some of them, even if the situation was complicated, wanted to keep on paying, to keep on repaying, to stay on the plan that was that was made at the beginning, because they wanted to. They didn't want to reschedule their payments. And we had a preventive speech about repayment, about the day when repayment was due to start again. I'll tell you a bit more just in a few minutes. And then we proposed refinancement as well through emergency loans, and as you said as well, with preferred conditions. Yes, not far from 50% of the usual interest rate. So that's what we did during the heart of the crisis. And then at the end of the crisis, we sent SMS, text message to all our active clients in order to warn those who benefited from moratorium that when their repayment started again. It was a main risk for us at the beginning of July, where we had like a third of our portfolio that was due to restart paying after moratorium, that this step happened without problems. And actually well, we didn't have I touch wood, as we say in France, we didn't have problem in July, nor in August, nor in September, and it seems to be all right as well in October, but we know that this crisis is going to be long. But that phase of the end of the moratorium went well, and we didn't have a raise in our risk. Then to accompany, well, yes, not English, to help our clients on the long term, we continued informing them by emails. We sent more than 400,000 emails about state aids, about trying again to assess their needs, and to inform them about webinars, because we developed, as everybody, I guess, in these times of impossible physical meetings, we developed online training and information session, and 77 happened during the crisis. And we could, with this tool, with this new tool, communicate with almost 10,000 clients, participants who were here to participate to these information sessions. So, as Goiko mentioned, some financial and non-financial services to try and help people to avoid financial problems during the crisis, and then BDS, business development services, and preventive measures to help them to restart their business and carry on paying their credits. And until now, as I was saying, things are going quite well on the repayment of the ongoing loans, but the crisis is going to be long, so we have to carry on being very, very, very careful. Is that okay for you, Goiko?
That was perfect. Thank you very much. Some impressive, really, really, really impressive numbers in terms of these, so a vast amount of activities undertaken, exactly following these items that we discussed as supporting the clients and enduring through the crisis together. And in case of ADI in France, of course, the moratorium ended somewhat earlier. In some other places, there was an extension, so there was like additional possibilities. But ADI is already, somehow floating in this period after, right? Some of the key measures are fading out, and it's very, very good to see that this is going well, and hopefully this will continue. I'm sure with this amount of activity towards the clients, this is the best thing we can do right now towards supporting them and also maintaining the results. Thank you very much for your inputs and fantastic work. Congratulations on the fantastic work to all the colleagues from ADI. And we would also like to give an opportunity to our participants and to our participants here at this webinar to ask questions. As I'm checking the chat, and we do not have questions at the moment. So if there will be some additional questions, we'll be happy to respond.
Yes. So I have I'm giving some time to the attendees to write some other questions, because I think both cases, the one that Mi Bospo sections and also the actions that Matthew has explained are quite interesting. So I'm sure we're going to have a couple of questions. In the meanwhile, I will read one from Jovin that I already have. It's for Goiko, I believe. She asks, what would be the best strategy to recover from the willful defaulters? I believe this refers to your slide where you have the four
quadrants.
Yes.
Well, in case of default, if we're talking about default as like this final situation and the definition of default that we had in the previous lecture, then it's a little bit really, really late. So in the case of, but in case of delinquency, so these early stages, what we say is that in some of these cases, willful sometimes is due to not knowing, not understanding, not seeing other options, right? Sometimes fear is a big driver of this seeming willfulness. And what we see in some cases that, if we take it to another level and discuss really some items which saying, this is the underlying problem and these are the possible options, and provide some support in quite surprisingly a lot of cases, this helps to improve the situation to a certain extent. So this collaborative strategy applying here would be the one to actually provide support. BDS, as Matthew was also saying, so business development services, and be provided in some cases. I am sure those prevented quite a few of those, so to say, willful, from the outside, but actually in some cases they just needed support. That would be my best guess or proposed activity in this situation.
I hope
You,
this has
anything?
answered. I hope this has answered her question. I also have another question for Adi. So Matthew, Valentina asks, what is the percentage of the portfolio that received a moratorium / restructuring? And separately, what percentage of the total outstanding clients received a new loan in the period of April-June?
Well, that's two good questions. The first one would be, I think that we maybe 35 to 40% of the portfolio maximum was either rescheduled or given 1 or 2 or 3 moratorium, and that's vast majority of them had only moratorium. We rescheduled some loans actually for willful defaulters who are in temporary difficulty and can't pay their installments. So that's the first question. I would say like 35 to 40%. And the second was, say again, sorry.
Yes. The second one says, what percentage of the total outstanding clients received a new loan?
Oh, yeah. Well, there are two phases. The first one is during the crisis. We tried to set up very quickly what we called an emergency loan. That was a very small one, 1,000 euros. It was no interest rate, very easy to disburse, very quick to disburse. But we had very few demand on this emergency loan because people were they didn't know what was going to happen, so they weren't ready to make loans. So we made a few, like maybe 200 to 250, not thousands, 250. So that's quite few. And at the end of the crisis, we set up relaunch loans, loans that were made to help our clients to buy a new stock, to have some funds to start again their activity. And these, I think that more than half our clients were disbursed one of these, because there were huge needs for that, so that they can start again their activity. So. And for us, June, July, August, and September were really very intensive activity month, because our clients were all asking for relaunch loans.
Okay. Thank you, says Valentina. I have another question from Sorin. She asks, the national regulation rules are modified nowadays overnight, and a lot of economic sectors cannot make forecasts, at least for a short period of time. How do we tailor solutions for them? For example, people who work in restaurants, tourism, and other sectors.
Very good question as well. I don't know in which country you are, but for us in France, that's the same. They decide from one day to another to close all the bars and restaurants in such or such city. So we decided that we had our how would you say, we had our kit of intel from Romania. Well, I'm not very aware of how Romania deals with this situation, but I guess it's almost the same, because there are not a lot of there are not a lot of solutions in front of this virus. So what we decided was that we have our Euromail. Okay, that's not me. That's Adriana. Did I say she?
Sorry.
What was I saying? Yes, we have our kit ready, and if you say, for example, if there is an announcement saying that such area, Marseille, for example, in south of France, there is some change in the law, then we ask our loan officers to get in touch with all our restaurants, bar, and such clients, see with them what is the solution, help them to get the state aid, because usually in France, I don't know in Romania, but when one sector has to shut its activity, there is a compensation. So, but you have to make you have to ask for it. So we help them to get these compensations, and we can reactivate some loans or BDS specific to these situations and these sectors. And then we activate them regionally, depending on the situation. And I don't know how long it's going to last, but I'm afraid for at least a few months.
Thank you, Matthew. I hope, Soren, that this answered your question. I have Diego Miranda who raised his hand. I will try to unmute him in order for him to speak. We always appreciate a little bit of interaction from the audience. So, hello?
Hi.
Hello, thank you for raising your hand.
Can you hear me? I was wondering maybe the best methods to deal with delinquency, if you can outline the most popular and more used. I think it would be valuable. Thank you.
To deal with delinquency, you mean what do you do when you have a client that doesn't pay?
Yeah.
Wow. Goiko, do you have a...
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much for your question. Actually, it was exactly the topic of this webinar, and we discussed new strategies basically down the road. And so the one you said, this corrective one and reacting after the trigger has occurred. So Sean, a few and the teams that are working on this are very, very familiar with all the activities, daily visits, daily calls, and so on and so on, to see on a daily basis what is the situation. And just has also provided an example of, let's say, a region where this is, some changes are occurring. But also in specific cases, I think what I just wanted to share an example and to somehow contribute also to the previous discussion, saying that BDS services or business development or advisory services, whatever we might want to call them, are very, very, very helpful in these cases. We have even outlined, and we did actually a series of small webinars for businesses, say, what is the COVID crisis management, somehow best response. Right? So, of course, the very immediate one is to support this liquidity situation, and of course, the staff. Then we have this, let's say, second step in the medium term to secure the profitability in the very short term, so matters of up to a couple of months. And then, when we are just have successfully put up our defenses, maybe then we can think about also remodeling our business, right? And then there are, of course, tools to do it, and support to clients in these cases is very, very important, as some of them might find it very, very difficult to be able to return to their previous way of doing business. You can only stretch it for a while, but if the situation has changed for good or for a very long period of time, then remodeling or changing the business model or changing something in the business approach is the best way to tackle it. And in that case, in some cases, the businesses lack the expertise of the experts can support there, or advisors, or also the enterprise staff that support there to guide them in a joint discussion what can be the changes that can be implemented during the new normal, right? The changed reality. Okay, so this can be one of the approaches. But of course, it's a tailored solution. But following the steps, the methodology, we can arrive at one each individual case or groups. Hopefully, this will do it.
Yeah, right. It's important to have a balance between the tools that we provide to our clients to comply, but also have a backup plan. Thank you for the answer.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for your question.
If anyone has any other questions, we will have 1-2 more minutes for answering them. Otherwise, we're gonna close the webinar soon. I think it's been very interesting, very fruitful. Thank you, Goiko and Matthew, for participating in it. We are happy that we had a lot of participation from the audience and also a lot of attendees. Just to remind you all that this presentation and also the video of this webinar will be on our webpage. You will also receive a follow-up email with this link. And whilst wait for one last minute questions, I will also want to let you know that tomorrow our annual conference continues. It's our last day and the first session starts at 10. So you're more than welcome to join us in tomorrow's webinars too. I am not seeing any more questions, so I guess this would be it for us. You also have Goiko's email on the slides presentation. So if you have some other questions that come to your mind after the webinar, feel more than welcome to contact him and contact us also if needed. With this, I then just want to thank you, Goiko. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Again. We
Thank you,
appreciate your
Adriana.
participation and
Many thanks also to our colleagues from Invesco for providing also their link to be shown.
I would appreciate if all of the attendees can fill in our evaluation form after this webinar ends. We just want to know what other webinars we can provide you with, what other topics you're interested. So it's very important for us to try to be as close as your needs as you can. So we'll wait for your suggestions after the webinar. Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye from my side. Take care. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.